So here we are with a first for TelecomTV this decade. We're doing an al fresco in-person interview. We're at the Priory Park Tennis Club on the banks of the Thames and Kew in London. And I'm here with Danielle Royston, the CEO and founder of TelcoDR. Danielle, thanks very much for joining us here today.
So excited to be here.
So we're going to talk about the telco cloud, and we're also going to talk about tennis, but we'll start with the telco cloud. So you've been talking about this topic for a number of years, but there doesn't appear to be a mad rush by the telcos to migrate everything lock, stock and barrel to public cloud platforms. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because telcos still look at it as outsourcing their data center, right? They're still looking at it as infrastructure. Should I run it in my closet or in AWS's closet? And when you look at it like that, yeah, the economics, when you do the math, you're like, I should run it under my roof. And I think that's where we are. But if you look to Jamie Dimon's experience in banking, where he had the same attitude initially, it's outsourcing my data center. I already have data centers. Why should I do that? And you look at his evolution and the way that he spoke publicly about it, he starts to come to the realization that it's not about the infrastructure that the hyperscalers provide, but it's about the software and the services that you get access to, that you get to experiment with and implement very quickly and increase your feature velocity and pay only for what you're actually using. And he starts to realize the competitive advantage that gives him. And I think we're still early days. We're still like Jamie Dimon thinking that it's outsourcing our data center. And I keep talking about, starting to realize it's about the software of the public cloud. And as soon as people start to realize that, they'll realize it is actually cheaper to run it in the public cloud. And all the CapEx expenditure that they're doing in their data center is just a write-off waiting to happen. And so when you start to realize that, you realize, I got to get to the public cloud. I got to understand how to use the software much better.
But now to get to the serious stuff, this is your first tennis trivia question.
Okay, great.
So we're starting off with a gentle one.
Yes.
Who defeated Bobby Riggs in the famous Battle of the Sexes match in 1973?
So that's easy. That's Billie Jean King. That was a great match, right? It was a great movie, right? Yeah.
Follow-up question.
Ooh.
In the 2017 movie called Battle of the Sexes, about that match and its impact, which actress played Billie Jean King?
Emma Stone.
Yes. Okay, 2 out of 2. I'll give you that. Back to telco cloud.
Yes.
Now, some telcos don't believe that the economics of the public cloud stack up quite yet for them. Do the public cloud operators, the giants, do they need a particular pricing model for the CSPs?
Well, I think, all things being equal, I think there's a lot of, egress fees, in terms of the data moving in and out of the public cloud. And I think that's probably what you're getting at. I think if telcos are making their decisions by going to, www.aws.com and looking at those pricing numbers, I think the pricing caps out at 100 gigs. And we're probably talking about a heck of a lot more that's going to be moving in and out of the public cloud. All of these guys are signing strategic partnerships with the hyperscalers. I think there's a natural partnership between the two where the hyperscalers are using their services on the last mile to get stuff out to their customers. And so I think there are probably partnerships that will be struck that make those economics work out. And I think in the last AWS earnings call, they were saying they were taking some hit and losing some margin. And so I think they want those workloads. They want to figure this out. And if pricing is a barrier, I think go talk to those guys. I think they'll strike up a deal. Yeah.
Okay, so let's come back to the public cloud giants now. Now, they've been courting the telcos for quite a few years now, not just the operators, but the vendors as well. Yeah. So they've had time to develop specialities. Would you say that any of them have any particular capabilities or skills that suit the telecom sector? Are there any public cloud USPs for the CS?
Yeah. So I think each of them have a slightly different message. I think when you look at AWS, their edge story is particularly strong with their wavelength offering. And that in the wavelength offering is also the outpost. And I think at the edge, we're seeing a lot of the telcos select them. Verizon selected them. I think Vodafone's testing them out. KDDI is testing them out. So it's in a lot of different places. And I think that's helping AWS win some deals. I think Microsoft has the strongest story for telcos with their Azure for Operators, right? They bought Metaswitch and Affirmed. I think people are still sort of like cautiously watching them. But everything that comes out of their leadership, their messaging is, we're here to help you. We want to do a partnership. We want the economics to be there for you to move workloads to the cloud. We'll help you do it. So I think they're at least positioning themselves as being telco friendly. And then I think Google's message is around, it's a little bit like AWS with Anthos, but I think they've really taken a lead around analytics and AI. And so when you talk to them, they say that's our specialty and that's our offering for telcos. So I think each of them have a different story. Vodafone very famously has picked Google for analytics. I think Verizon's been poking around with some AI work with contacts with their call center stuff. So yeah, I do think there's some specialties, and different telcos are looking to different hyperscalers for different offerings. So I do see some differences there.
So back to the sporting theme now. Which tournaments does a tennis player have to win to get the Grand Slam?
To get the Grand Slam, you have to win the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open.
Correct.
And for a Golden Slam, the gold medal in the same year, which only happens obviously every 4 years.
Wow.
And so Novak had that chance, and Serena, I think, had that chance. Both of them did not successfully do it. Steffi Graf, I think, was the only person to do that, maybe?
Okay. Yeah. You don't get any bonus points for
I don't,
that.
but I think Steffi's done the Golden Slam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good trivia.
Yeah.
Well done. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, earlier this year, you announced Totogi, which is a real-time cloud-based telecom charging startup aiming to compete with the likes of Amdocs and Netcracker. Are you still currently the acting CEO of that company, and what's going on with Totogi?
Yeah, I'm still leading up Totogi. I think, we had this great opportunity to launch the company at MWC, where I took over the Ericsson booth and made a big splash with Cloud City, just continue to advance, what I believe is inevitable for telco. I think they're really going to start to adopt the public cloud and use it very deeply, use the software and the services. And so we're getting great traction. It's still, like I said, early days. Telcos move slowly. I'm asking them to make a pretty significant shift in the way that they run things like charging. And so we're starting with some of the smaller guys, the people who, the economics that, we're charging by the transaction really work out, and they want world-class software at a price they can afford. And so talking to the tier 3 players, they love the message, they love the free tier that we're offering. And so, it's less about charging in the traditional sense and more about getting to the point where we can create excellent experiences for subscribers. And that really comes into using AI and machine learning. And so I think that's what Totogi is really trying to drive, is leverage all the data that telcos produce. They produce more data and they can't access it because it's trapped in siloed on-premise systems that are, sometimes decades old. And we're trying to get that data up into the cloud and start to get customer insights so that we feel like our telco knows us as subscribers, right? I mean, the real competitor here is not the next telco. The real competitor are the OTT vendors that are coming at their subscribers with better insights, better offers. And that's what I'm really trying to offer telcos, is let's start to focus on that problem and fight back against the OTT vendors.
So, you're going big with Totogi here. This is a big endeavor. This is something that seems like it's got applicability beyond the telecom sector. And when you announced the company, it came with $100 million worth of funding. Where is this money coming from? Where's the root of this funding?
Yeah, so on exiting Optiva, I was really excited about the work I was doing, and I had a group of people approach me to work for them in different capacities, excited about my message in telecoms. And so in stepping back, I was like, hey, why don't we just build it? Instead of me going to work for a particular company, let's start it up. But I had a couple of ground rules, which was, number one, they had to have a long-term outlook, right? Telco's famous for how slow they move, and I was going to be asking them to change the way they did everything. And so this wasn't going to be a 3 or 5 year thing. It needed to be like a decade-long type of return. And so the group agreed to that. Let's see. Number two, I needed the initial investment into Totogi to be quite significant. That's because it needed to be, number one, taken seriously. Number two, telcos really look into your funding. And I learned this from my time at Optiva, that did we have the funding for systems that typically are installed for a decade or longer, right? And so it couldn't be, dribs and drabs of 5 and 10 million, right? It needed to be a pretty significant number. And so this small group said yes. They want to keep the limelight on me. They don't want to be named. And so yet again, I will be elusive in my answer. We talk about, I do get a lot of questions about it, and they continue to say we want to be a quiet group. And so I'm like, all right, here we go. But I think the plan is, we have a pledge of $1 billion. We think we need more to do what we're going to do. It's not just charging in BSS. It's a big vision. I compare myself to Elon Musk, right? It is a mission to Mars, right? It's the mission to change the telecom industry. And you mentioned something in your question. You're like, you could take it to other verticals. And that is not my intent. My intent is to keep completely focused in telco. I am TelcoDR. And so I love this industry. I think there's tons of potential. I think Silicon Valley runs away from it. And I'm running right towards it. And I think there's tons to do, and let's go do it.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. Well, Danielle, thanks for joining us today. Thank you for experiencing all of the transport modes we could throw at you, the weather and everything. And of course, now we progress.
Trivia, everything.
Trivia.
Tough questions. It was a great interview.
And next up, we have to progress to the court.
Let's go do it.
Let's
awesome.
do it.
Thank you.